The sound that woke Kade Quinlan from his uneasy sleep was wrong, profoundly wrong, because human voices did not rise through stone foundations in the middle of the night. He sat up in bed, the autumn chill biting at his bare shoulders, and listened. There it was again, weeping, muffled but unmistakably female, coming from directly beneath his bedroom floor. He had ridden home barely an hour ago from the most disastrous ceremony he had ever witnessed in 8 years, as the Frontier's sworn contract witness. The Blacktooth and Ironstream clans had spent months negotiating the marriage between their children, and Kade had signed every page of the betrothal agreement with his official mark, binding the contract under territorial law. The feast had been laid, the braziers lit, the clans assembled. Then, when the groom stepped forward to speak his vows, the bride had simply vanished. Chaos had erupted. Accusations flew like arrows. The Blacktooth matriarch had threatened blood price. The Ironstream patriarch had roared about dishonor. Kade had stood in the middle of it all, his signature on those documents suddenly feeling like a noose around his neck. A contract witness who signed a betrothal that one party repudiated could lose their license, their livelihood, everything. Worse, if the clans went to feud over this, human settlements caught between their territories would burn. He had ridden home through the dark, his mind churning with worst possibilities, and collapsed into bed without even removing his formal coat. Now someone was crying beneath his house. Kade pulled on his boots and took a lantern downstairs. His homestead was modest but well built, a wedding gift from his late parents when he had earned his witness license. It sat beside Fisher Creek at the point where the water ran fast and cold over smooth stones. The house had been built atop an old stone culvert that channeled a seasonal stream beneath the foundation during spring floods. In autumn, the culvert was dry, a low tunnel of fitted stone that opened onto the creek bank. He had not checked that tunnel in months. Kade knelt on his wooden floor and pressed his ear to the boards. The weeping had stopped, replaced by harsh, frightened breathing. He rose and went outside, circling around to the creek side of the house. The lantern light caught the dark mouth of the culvert, and something moved in the shadows there. "Please," a voice said. Female, rough with tears, accented in the way orcs shaped their consonants around their tusks. "Please do not hurt me." Kade crouched down, keeping the lantern low so it would not blind whoever hid in that stone space. "I am not going to hurt you. This is my home. Can you come out?" Silence stretched. Then, slowly, a figure crawled forward into the light. She was young, perhaps 20, with the green skin and pointed ears of orc kind. Her tusks were small, barely protruding past her upper lip, and her face was fine-boned and delicate. She was willowy rather than broad, built like a dancer, and she wore the remnants of what had clearly been bridal clothes. The sash across her shoulder was torn, the fabric mud-stained and wet. Her dark hair had come loose from its ceremonial braids and hung in tangled curtains around her face. Kade recognized her instantly. Zara Blackwater, daughter of the Blacktooth matriarch, the bride who had vanished from her own wedding. She looked up at him with eyes so full of terror that his heart twisted. "I beg you," she said. "One night, just shelter for one night, and then I will go." "I swear it on my mother's name." Every instinct Kade possessed screamed that this was a terrible idea. Harboring a runaway bride whose betrothal contract bore his signature was professional suicide. If anyone discovered he had helped her flee, his license would be revoked. He might face criminal charges. The clans would consider him complicit in the broken agreement, and the delicate peace he had worked years to build between orc and human settlements would shatter. But she was shivering in torn silk, covered in mud and creek water, and she was looking at him like he was the only thing standing between her and death. "Come inside," he said. "You are freezing." The relief that crossed her face was so profound it hurt to witness. She crawled out of the culvert slowly, as though expecting him to change his mind or strike her. When she stood, she swayed on her feet. Kade reached out to steady her and felt her flinch before she caught herself. "It is all right," he said quietly. "Come on." He led her into his house through the kitchen door. Inside, the residual warmth from the banked fire made her shivering more obvious. She stood dripping on his floor, her arms wrapped around herself, looking around his home with wide eyes. Kade set the lantern down and stirred the coals in the hearth back to life. "Sit," he said, pointing to the chair nearest the growing flames. "I will get you something dry to wear." "You are the witness," she said suddenly, "the human who signed our betrothal." "I am Kade Quinlan, yes." He paused halfway to the stairs. "You were there when I signed. You smiled at me," she said. "When you marked the final page, you looked at me and smiled, and I thought, at least the humans do not think I am going to my doom." The words hit him like a fist. He turned to look at her fully. "Were you?" She closed her eyes. "I did not know, not then." Kade did not ask her to explain. Not yet. She was exhausted and cold, and whatever had driven her to flee into the night and hide beneath a stranger's house like a wounded animal, she needed care first and questions later. He brought her one of his own shirts and a pair of trousers that would be too large but dry. "There is a room upstairs," he said. "You can change there. Take all the time you need." She clutched the clothes to her chest and climbed the stairs slowly, favoring her right leg. When she was gone, Kade stood in his kitchen and tried to think. This was disaster. This was ruin. He should ride back to the clans right now, return her, salvage what he could of the situation. Instead, he put water on to boil for tea. She came back down after a long while, swimming in his clothes, her hair still damp but combed back with her fingers. She had washed her face. Without the mud and tear tracks, she looked younger and more fragile. She sat in the chair by the fire without being told and accepted the cup of tea he handed her with both hands. "Thank you," she said. "You are welcome." Kade sat across from her with his own cup. "I will not ask you why you ran tonight. You do not owe me that, but I need to know if you are hurt." "My ankle," she said. "I twisted it climbing down the rocks by the falls. It is not broken. Let me see." She hesitated, then pulled up the leg of the two long trousers. Her ankle was swollen and already darkening with bruises. Kade fetched cold water and clean cloth and wrapped it carefully while she sat very still, watching him with an expression he could not read. "You can stay the night," he said when he was finished. "Longer if you need to, but you should know what that means for me." "I know," she said quietly. "You signed our betrothal. If you shelter me, you violate your own contract. You could lose your license." "I could." He met her eyes. "I am going to do it anyway." "Why?" It was a simple question, and Kade found he did not have a simple answer. "Because you are afraid and hurt, and I will not send anyone away in that condition. Because something about this entire situation felt wrong from the moment your groom's family began pushing for the ceremony to proceed without you. Because when I saw you standing in that wedding circle tonight, you looked like someone walking to the gallows, and I should have stopped it then. Because it is the right thing to do," he said finally. Zara looked down at her cup. "You do not know me. You owe me nothing. The right thing for you would be to return me to my clan and protect your reputation. Then I am choosing the wrong thing." He finished his tea and set the cup aside. "You can have my bed. I will sleep down here. I cannot take your bed. You have a twisted ankle and you spent hours hiding in a stone culvert. You are taking the bed." His tone left no room for argument. "We can talk more in the morning. For tonight, you are safe here. I give you my word." She searched his face as though looking for the lie in that promise. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her because she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Kade Quinlan. Just Kade." She climbed the stairs to his room. Kade banked the fire and lay down on the long bench by the hearth, pulling a blanket over himself. Sleep did not come. He stared at the ceiling and thought about the weight of signatures, the cost of kindness, and the look in Zara Blackwater's eyes when she had crawled out of the darkness begging for one night of shelter. He had given it without hesitation, and he knew already that one night would not be enough. Morning came cold and bright. Kade woke stiff from the bench and found Zara already awake, sitting at his kitchen table with her injured foot propped on a second chair. She had found bread and cheese in his cupboard and was eating slowly, carefully, like someone who had not eaten in a long time. "Help yourself," he said dryly. She flushed. "I am sorry, I should have asked. I am joking. Eat, there is plenty." He built up the fire and put porridge on to cook. "How is your ankle?" "Better, still sore." She watched him move around the kitchen. "You are being very kind to someone who destroyed your contract." "You have not destroyed anything yet." Kade stirred the porridge. "The betrothal is only void if you refuse to marry or if the groom rejects you for cause. You have not formally refused. You just were not present when they called for vows. That is a thin difference. It is the difference that matters in contract law." He ladled porridge into 2 bowls and brought them to the table. "The agreement gives both parties 1 full moon cycle to resolve disputes before either side can claim breach. That means we have 28 days before anything becomes permanent." Zara stared at him. "You memorized the terms." "I wrote half of them." "Your mother and the Iron Stream patriarch argued over every clause for 3 months." He ate a spoonful of porridge. "This is not about my contract, Zara. This is about what you want. Do you want to marry Gareth Iron Stream?" The question seemed to hit her like cold water. She set down her spoon. "It does not matter what I want. It matters to me." "Why?" There was that question again, raw and bewildered. Why does a human contract witness care what an orc woman wants? "Because you crawled out from under my house last night begging for shelter, and people do not do that unless they are truly desperate." Kade leaned forward. "Because I have spent 8 years witnessing agreements between your people and mine, and I have learned to read faces. You looked terrified at that wedding, not nervous, not reluctant, terrified." Zara's hands tightened around her bowl. "You are observant. It is my job." He waited. "Talk to me." She was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. 3 days ago, I went to the Iron Stream camp to finalize the ceremony details with Gareth's mother. I finished early and started back to my own tent, but I got turned around in their camp. I ended up near the elders' pavilion." She swallowed hard. "I heard voices inside. Gareth's uncle Vorak and 2 other men. They were laughing." Kade went very still. "They were laughing about the wedding," Zara continued. "About how clever it was. Gareth would marry me and I would bring the Ford rights as my dowry, just as the contract specified. But once the rights were transferred, Vorak planned to accuse my clan of breaching tributary agreements. He has documents, Kade. Forged documents showing that Blacktooth hunters took game from Iron Stream territory over the past year. He plans to use them to demand penalties, knowing my mother cannot pay. When she refuses, he will call it an act of aggression and declare the marriage contract void for cause. He keeps everything, including the Ford rights, and he will use the feud as an excuse to drive my clan off the land entirely." The porridge congealed in Kade's stomach. "And the human farms, between your settlements and ours. When the fighting starts, they will burn. Vorak does not care. He said, let the humans flee or die. It will drive the territorial governor to finally clear all orcs out of the region. which suits him fine because he has plans to sell our land to human buyers once we are gone." Her voice cracked. "He said it was perfect. A marriage, a feud, a purge. He gets rich and my people are destroyed, and all it costs is his nephew marrying a Blacktooth girl for a few weeks before the contract is voided." Kade pushed his bowl away. He felt sick. "You heard all of this. Every word. I hid behind their supply wagon and I listened to them plan it all out." Zara reached into the pocket of the trousers she wore and pulled out a folded piece of parchment. "And when they left the pavilion, I snuck inside and took this." She spread the parchment on the table. Kade leaned forward to read. It was a game census document, the kind territorial wardens issued to track hunting. It showed lists of deer, boar, and fowl taken from Iron Stream territory over the past year, with dates and hunter names. Every name was Blacktooth clan. It was also clearly a forgery. The ink was too fresh, the script too uniform. Real census documents accumulated marks and notes from multiple wardens over time. This one looked like someone had copied the format and filled it in all at once. "This is the proof," Kade said slowly. "This is what Vorak plans to use to accuse your clan of treaty breach." "Yes. And when I heard them coming back, I ran. I hid it in my wedding clothes and I did not tell anyone because I did not know who to trust. Vorak is the eldest. He has influence. If I told my mother, she might confront the Iron Stream patriarch, and without proof, it would just look like Blacktooth trying to sabotage the marriage." Zara's hands were shaking. "I was going to go through with the wedding. I was going to marry Gareth and say nothing, because at least that way the alliance would hold for a while. And maybe I could warn my mother privately before it all fell apart. But when I stood in that circle last night and saw Vorak watching me with that smile, She broke off, pressing her hand to her mouth. "You ran," Kade finished quietly. "I ran. I climbed down the falls, I ran through the woods, and I hid in the first place I could find." She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. "And now everyone thinks I am a coward who abandoned her people. My mother must be so ashamed." "You are not a coward." Kade picked up the forged document and studied it more carefully. "You are the only person with evidence of a plot that would destroy 2 clans and a dozen human families. That took courage. Courage would have been standing up in front of everyone and accusing Vorak to his face. That would have been suicide. Who would have believed you? A bride accusing her groom's uncle of conspiracy on her wedding night. Without proof presented by someone credible, they would have called you a liar trying to escape an unwanted marriage. Your word against a clan elder." Kade set the document down. "This is bigger than a wedding, Zara. This is fraud and planned violence. This needs to go through proper channels." "What channels? The clans will not listen to me now. I am a runaway bride. I have no standing. Then we need to give you standing." Kade stood up and began to pace. "The territorial governor will not intervene in inter-clan disputes unless there is documented fraud or imminent threat to human settlements. This qualifies on both counts, but we need to present it formally, with credible witnesses. If I bring this to the governor as the contract witness on the original betrothal, it will carry weight." "You would do that?" Zara looked stunned. "That means admitting you are harboring me. Your reputation, my reputation, is built on honesty and fairness. If I sign fraudulent contracts and look the other way when people plot to start wars, what is it worth?" He stopped pacing and looked at her. "But this will take time. We need to document everything. We need to verify the forgery. We need to build a case that will hold up in front of a territorial magistrate and a clan moot. You cannot do that in one night. You want me to stay. I need you to stay. You are the witness to the conspiracy. Without your testimony, this is just a piece of parchment." Kade sat back down across from her. It will be dangerous. If Vorak finds out you have that document, he will come for you. If your mother finds out I am hiding you, she will come for me. But if we do this right, we can stop a war and expose a fraud, and maybe we can do it without destroying your life or mine in the process. Zara looked down at the table. You are asking me to trust you. I am asking you to let me help. Why? She asked for the third time. You could turn me in. You could save yourself. Why are you doing this? Kade thought about that. He thought about 8 years of sitting at negotiating tables, watching orc clans and human settlers navigate fear and prejudice to find common ground. He thought about the way Zara had looked at him when he signed the final page of her betrothal agreement, hope and resignation mixed together. He thought about the sound of her weeping beneath his floor in the dark. Because someone has to, he said simply. And I am here and you are here, and we can fix this if we work together. That is enough reason for me. Zara met his eyes. He saw her measuring him, weighing his words, looking for the angle or the trap. Then slowly she nodded. All right, I will stay. I will help you build your case. But Kade, if this goes wrong, it will not. But if it does, you tell everyone I forced you. You tell them I threatened you or tricked you. You protect yourself. No, Kade, no. His voice was firm. We do this together or not at all. I am not throwing you to the wolves to save my skin. Agreed. She stared at him, and something shifted in her expression. The wariness did not leave, but underneath it, he saw the faintest spark of hope. Agreed. They spent the morning going over everything she remembered from the conversation she had overheard. Kade took notes in his careful script, documenting names, dates, and details. He compared the forged census document to real ones he kept in his records, noting the discrepancies. By midday, they had the outline of a case, but it was still thin. They needed more. I need to go into town, Kade said. There is a territorial warden stationed there who can verify the forgery officially. Once we have his statement, we can take this to the magistrate. Zara's face tightened. How long will you be gone? A few hours. Maybe longer if the warden is out on rounds. He saw her fear and gentled his voice. You will be safe here. No one knows you are here. The house is isolated and the doors lock from the inside. I will be back before dark. What if someone comes? Hide. The culvert, the root cellar, the hay loft in the barn, there are places. He caught her hand across the table. Her skin was warm and rougher than he expected, calloused from work. I will come back, Zara. I promise. She nodded, but her hand tightened on his for just a moment before she let go. Kade rode into town with the forged document sealed in his saddlebag. The warden, a grizzled man named Marcus who had been tracking game and poachers in the territory for 20 years, took one look at the parchment and shook his head. This is amateur work, Marcus said. Look at the paper. It is too new. Real census documents get folded and unfolded a dozen times, carried in saddlebags, marked up with field notes. This one looks like it was made yesterday. Can you write a statement to that effect? I can do better. I can show you the real census for this territory and time period. If blacktooth hunters had taken this much game from Ironstream land, it would have shown up on my reports and triggered an investigation. Marcus pulled out a worn ledger and flipped through pages. Here, last year's records, no excessive crossings, no disputes logged. Whoever made this forgot that I keep copies of everything. Kade could have kissed him. Can you testify to that before a magistrate? If it is about stopping a clan war, absolutely. I have got farms in my jurisdiction that will burn if Blacktooth and Ironstream go at it. Marcus wrote out a formal statement and sealed it with his warden's mark. You are onto something ugly, Kade. Be careful. I will. Kade rode home as the afternoon shadows stretched long. He found Zara in the kitchen, stirring a pot of stew that smelled rich and savory. She had found his root vegetables and dried meat and made something far better than he usually managed. "You can cook," he said, surprised. "I can do many things." She ladled stew into bowls. "Did you find the warden?" "I did." Kade pulled out Marcus's statement and showed her. He confirmed the document is a forgery and provided records to prove it. "We have corroboration now. Tomorrow I will ride to the magistrate's station and file a formal fraud complaint. Once that is on record, we can request a clan moot to address the charges." Zara read the statement slowly, her lips moving over the words. When she finished, she set it down and pressed her hand to her mouth. "This might actually work. It will work." Kade sat down and tasted the stew. It was delicious, flavored with herbs he did not know he had. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mother. She said every woman should know how to make a meal out of nothing because you never know when you will need to." Zara sat across from him. "She taught me a lot of things: hunting, tracking, negotiating, cooking. She wanted me to be strong enough to lead someday. You will be. Once this is over, you will go back to your clan with proof of a conspiracy. That is leadership. Or I will go back in disgrace and no one will listen." She ate a spoonful of stew. Orcs do not forgive easily. Especially not runaway brides. They will forgive when they understand why you ran. Maybe. She did not sound convinced. "Tell me about yourself, Kade. How does a human become a contract witness on the frontier?" It was an obvious attempt to change the subject, but Kade allowed it. "My parents were settlers. They came west when I was a boy, claimed land near the creek, built this house. They were good people, fair and kind. When disputes broke out between orc clans and human farms, they acted as informal mediators. People trusted them. They sound remarkable. They were." Kade felt the old ache of loss. "They died of winter fever 6 years ago, within days of each other. After they were gone, people still came to me to witness agreements and settle disputes. I realized I could make it a profession, so I studied contract law and applied for a territorial license. I wanted to continue what my parents started, building peace. Trying to." He finished his stew. "It is hard work. People carry a lot of fear and anger, but every agreement that holds, every dispute that gets resolved without bloodshed, that is progress. You are an optimist. I am a realist who refuses to give up." He met her eyes across the table. "Like someone else I know." Zara looked down, but he saw the corner of her mouth twitch in what might have been a smile. They fell into a routine over the following days. Kade spent his mornings riding to the magistrate's station, filing documents and gathering additional evidence. Zara stayed at the house, keeping out of sight, recovering from her twisted ankle. In the evenings, they cooked together and talked. She told him about growing up in the Blacktooth clan, about learning to shoot a bow before she could read, about the pressure of being the matriarch's only daughter. He told her about his work, about the strange satisfaction of finding compromise, about the loneliness of living alone on the frontier. He did not tell her that he was starting to look forward to coming home each day, or that the house felt warmer and more alive with her in it, or that he had started noticing small things like the way she hummed while she cooked and the sound of her laugh when he said something unexpectedly funny. He definitely did not tell her that he was falling in love with her, because that would be the most foolish thing he could possibly do. 10 days after Zara had hidden beneath his house, Kade received a summons. The territorial magistrate had reviewed the fraud complaint and the supporting evidence. A formal inquiry was being convened. Both Blacktooth and Ironstream clans were ordered to send representatives to testify. Kade, as the original contract witness and the person who had filed the complaint, was required to attend and present his evidence. The summons did not mention Zara by name, but it asked for the identity of the person who had overheard the conspiracy and who possessed the original forged document. They want me to come forward, Zara said, when Kade showed her the summons. If I testify, everyone will know you have been hiding me. Yes, you will lose your license, maybe face criminal charges for harboring a runaway bride. Possibly. Kade set the summons aside. But if you do not testify, Vorak will deny everything and the inquiry will collapse. The magistrate cannot act without a witness. Then we are trapped. No, Kade leaned back in his chair. We are going to do something dramatic and probably reckless. Zara raised an eyebrow. I am listening. The summons orders clan representatives to the magistrate's station in 5 days. That is a neutral location with territorial guards present. Vorak cannot start a fight there without facing imperial charges. If we show up together and you testify with me beside you, the magistrate will hear the full truth in a space where neither clan can retaliate immediately. He met her eyes. It is risky. Your mother will be angry. Vorak will be dangerous. The Iron Stream Patriarch will feel betrayed. But it is our best chance to present the evidence in a way that forces everyone to listen. You are asking me to stand in front of both clans and my mother and accuse a respected elder of fraud. I am asking you to tell the truth. Kade reached across the table and took her hand. And I will be standing right beside you when you do it. You will not face them alone. Zara looked down at their joined hands. You are going to sacrifice your career for this. I am going to do my job. Witnesses tell the truth, even when it costs them. He squeezed her hand gently. I signed a fraudulent contract because I did not know it was fraudulent. Now I do. I am not going to let that stand just to protect my reputation. You are a strange man, Kade Quinlan. He smiled despite himself. I have been told that before. She did not pull her hand away. They sat like that for a long moment, the silence between them no longer awkward but something warmer and more fragile. Then Zara spoke quietly. If we do this and it goes wrong, I will not blame you. I need you to know that. It will not go wrong. But if it does, it will not. He met her eyes, and the certainty in his own voice surprised him. I have spent 10 days building a case with you. I know how smart you are, how brave. You ran into the woods alone to stop a war. You are not going to fail now. She smiled, small and tentative. You have a lot of faith in me. I have exactly the right amount of faith. He released her hand and stood up. We leave in 3 days. That gives us time to prepare your testimony and make sure we have every piece of evidence organized. The magistrate will question you hard. We need to be ready. All right. Zara rose as well, testing her weight on her ankle. It had healed well over the past days, the swelling gone. Then let us get to work. They spent the next 3 days in intense preparation. Kade played the role of hostile questioner, throwing every challenge and accusation at Zara that he could imagine the clans might use. She stumbled at first, her answers too defensive, too emotional. But she learned quickly. By the 3rd day, she could recount the entire conspiracy in clear, factual terms, without faltering even when Kade pressed her on details. Where were you standing when you overheard this conversation? Behind the supply wagon on the east side of the Elders' Pavilion. I could see them through the gap in the tent wall. How do you know it was Vorak speaking? I recognized his voice. He has a distinctive rasp from an old throat wound, and I saw his shadow on the tent wall. He is taller than the other men. Why did you not report this to your mother immediately? Because Vorak is a clan elder with influence, and I was a bride with no proof. Accusing him without evidence would have looked like an attempt to escape an unwanted marriage. I needed proof before I could speak. Why should we believe you now? Because I have that proof. She held up the forged document. And because a territorial warden has verified it is a forgery. And because I ran away from my own wedding and hid in a culvert rather than let this fraud destroy my clan. I have nothing to gain from lying and everything to lose. Kade set down his notes. That is perfect. If you can say that in front of the magistrate, we will win. Zara let out a shaky breath. I hope you are right. I am always right, he grinned at her. Almost never, but this time I am. She laughed, and the sound was lighter than he had heard from her before. You are impossible. That is what my mother used to say. They ate dinner together that night, a quiet meal with little conversation. Kade could feel the tension building, the awareness that tomorrow they would leave the safety of this house and step into something dangerous and uncertain. When the meal was finished and the dishes washed, Zara stood by the fire and stared into the flames. Kade, she said without turning around. Why are you really doing this? He had known she would ask eventually. He joined her by the fire, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. I told you, it is the right thing to do. That is not the whole truth. She looked at him sideways. You have been risking everything for me. Your career, your reputation, possibly your freedom. People do not do that just because it is right. There has to be more. Kade felt his heart start to race. This was the moment where he could lie, deflect, keep things professional and distant. It would be safer, smarter. But he had spent 10 days watching her move through his home, listening to her stories, seeing the strength and intelligence and humor beneath the fear. He had watched her face brighten when he came home each evening. He had learned the sound of her humming while she cooked and the way she tilted her head when she was thinking hard. And he had realized, somewhere in those quiet evenings, that he did not want to lose this. He did not want to lose her. You are right, he said quietly. There is more. Zara turned to face him fully. Tell me. I am doing this because you deserve the truth to be heard, because you deserve justice. But I am also doing it because somewhere in the past 10 days, I stopped thinking of you as a case to solve or a person to protect. He took a breath. I started thinking of you as someone I did not want to say goodbye to when this was over. She went very still. Kade, I know the timing is terrible. I know we are about to walk into the most dangerous situation either of us has ever faced. I know this is probably the worst possible moment to tell you that I have feelings for you. He forced himself to hold her gaze. But I also know that tomorrow we might walk into that magistrate's station and everything could fall apart, and I did not want to face that without you knowing how I feel. Zara stared at him. Her face was unreadable, and for a long, horrible moment, Kade was certain he had made a catastrophic mistake. Then she reached up and touched his cheek with her fingertips, her expression soft and wondering. You are a very foolish man. I know. You have risked everything for someone you barely know. I know. And now you are telling me you have feelings for me on the eve of a confrontation that could destroy both our lives. Yes, he managed a shaky smile. I am aware that my timing is not ideal. It is terrible timing. But she was smiling too, small and uncertain. But I am glad you told me, because I have been thinking the same thing. Every evening when I hear your horse coming up the path, I feel this lightness, and I realized I do not want this to end either. I do not want to go back to my clan and never see you again. I do not want to lose this. Kade felt something expand in his chest, warm and overwhelming. Zara, I am afraid, she said suddenly. I am afraid of tomorrow. I am afraid of facing my mother and Vorak and all of it. But I am more afraid of not trying, of letting fear stop me from fighting for what is right. She stepped closer. And I am afraid of not saying that I care about you too, Kade, that these past days have been some of the best of my life, even with everything falling apart around us. He did not know which of them moved first, but suddenly they were holding each other. She was warm and solid in his arms, her face pressed against his shoulder, and he buried his face in her hair and held on tight. We are going to get through this, he said into her hair. Tomorrow we are going to tell the truth, and the magistrate is going to believe us, and Vorak is going to face justice. And then we are going to figure out what comes next. Together. Together, she echoed, and her arms tightened around him. They stood like that for a long time, the fire crackling beside them, the world outside dark and quiet. The next morning they rode out before dawn. Zara wore a cloak with the hood pulled up to hide her face, and they traveled the back trails to avoid being seen. The magistrate's station was a solid stone building in the center of a small human settlement, with territorial guards posted at the doors. Kade and Zara arrived just as the sun cleared the horizon. Inside, the main hall had been arranged for the inquiry. The magistrate, a stern woman named Helena, sat at a raised desk at the front. To one side, the Blacktooth clan representatives had assembled, Zara's mother, matriarch Venna, with two of her advisors. To the other side, the Ironstream delegation, Patriarch Thrain, his son Gareth, and Vorak. The moment Kade walked in with Zara at his side, the room erupted. Venna shot to her feet. "Zara!" Vorak's face went pale, then dark with rage. "You," Gareth just stared, his mouth open. Magistrate Helena slammed her staff on the floor 3 times, a sharp crack that echoed through the hall. "Order! Everyone sit down, or I will clear this room and hold the inquiry in private." Slowly, the clan representative sat. Venna's eyes were locked on Zara, her expression torn between fury and relief. Vorak looked like he wanted to lunge across the room and throttle both of them. Helena fixed Kade with a cold stare. "Contract witness Quinlan, you have filed a complaint of fraud and conspiracy. Before we proceed, I must ask, is this the witness you referenced in your filing?" "Yes, magistrate." "This is Zara Blackwater, daughter of matriarch Venna, the intended bride in the Blacktooth Ironstream betrothal contract. She will testify to what she overheard and provide evidence of the conspiracy. And you have been harboring her for the past," Helena checked her notes, 13 days. "Knowing that she was a runaway bride whose absence violated a contract you yourself witnessed." "Yes, magistrate." The room went utterly silent. "You understand," Helena said, her voice dangerously quiet, "that this is a direct violation of witness ethics. You could lose your license for this." "I understand." Kade kept his voice steady. "I also understand that the contract I witnessed was based on fraudulent terms, and that Zara fled because she uncovered a conspiracy to use the marriage as a pretext for war. I chose to help her bring that evidence to light, regardless of the personal consequences." Helena stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to Zara. "Miss Blackwater, approach." Zara threw back her hood and walked to the front of the room. Kade moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Venna made a strangled sound, but Helena's sharp glance silenced her. "Tell me what happened," Helena said. "From the beginning." Zara did. She recounted every detail. The conversation she overheard, the forged document, her decision to run, her reasons for staying silent. She spoke clearly and calmly, the way she had practiced, and when Helena questioned her sharply on details, she answered without hesitation. When Zara finished, Helena turned to Vorak. "Elder Vorak, how do you respond to these accusations?" Vorak stood slowly. He was tall and broad, with graying hair and a face carved from stone. "The girl is lying. She fled her wedding because she is a coward, and now she invents conspiracy to justify her dishonor. I have done nothing wrong." "Then you deny planning to use the marriage to seize Blacktooth Ford rights and provoke a feud." "Completely." "And you deny creating forged census documents to falsely accuse Blacktooth hunters of treaty violations." "I have created no such documents." Helena held out her hand. Kade stepped forward and placed the forged census in her palm, along with Warden Marcus's statement. Helena read both carefully, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up. This document is a clear forgery. The territorial warden has confirmed it. The question is who created it and why. She fixed Vorak with a hard stare. You claim innocence. Do you have proof of that claim? I do not need proof. The burden is on the accuser. The accuser has provided a forged document that would have been used to frame her clan for treaty violations. The accuser has provided sworn testimony from a territorial warden. The accuser has provided a detailed account of a conspiracy that benefits you specifically. Helena's voice was cold. What do you have, Elder Vorak? Vorak's jaw tightened. I have my reputation. I have served my clan for 40 years. I will not be called a liar by a runaway bride and a compromised human. Then you refuse to address the evidence. There is no evidence. There is only slander. Helena turned to Patriarch Thrain. What is your position, Patriarch? Do you stand with your elder? Thrain looked deeply uncomfortable. He glanced at Vorak, then at Zara, then at the forged document. If this accusation is false, Vorak should be able to account for where this document came from and why it exists. It is a forgery made by the girl herself to escape her obligations, Vorak snapped. Then where is the original? Kade spoke up, his voice cutting through the room. If this is a forgery of a real document, where is the real census showing Blacktooth violations? Warden Marcus has confirmed that no such report exists in territorial records. So, either Zara created an entirely fictional document to accuse your elder of a crime that benefits only him, or your elder created that document as part of the conspiracy she described, which is more plausible. Vorak turned on him, his face twisted with rage. You have no standing here, human. You violated your own contract by harboring a fugitive. You are a disgrace to your profession. Perhaps, Kade said calmly, but I am a disgrace who brought the truth to light. What are you, Elder Vorak? How dare you? Enough. Helena's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down, Elder Vorak, before I have you removed for contempt. Vorak sat, but his eyes promised murder. Helena turned to Venna. Matriarch Blackwater, your daughter has accused a clan elder of conspiracy and fraud. What is your response? Venna looked at Zara for a long moment. Her face was a storm of emotions. Anger, confusion, hurt, and underneath it all, something that might have been pride. My daughter is many things. Reckless, stubborn, impulsive, but she is not a liar. If she says she heard this conspiracy, I believe her. Vorak surged to his feet again. You would take her word over mine. I would take evidence over denials. Venna's voice was hard as iron. You have provided no defense, Vorak, only outrage. That tells me everything I need to know. Helena nodded slowly. This inquiry finds sufficient evidence of fraud and conspiracy to warrant a full investigation. Elder Vorak, you are hereby ordered to surrender all documents and correspondence related to the Blacktooth Ironstream betrothal for review. Until the investigation is complete, all terms of the betrothal contract are suspended. You cannot do this, Vorak snarled. I just did. Helena's gaze swept the room. This matter will proceed to a clan moot within 14 days, where both clans will have the opportunity to present evidence and testimony. In the meantime, any retaliation against Zara Blackwater or Kade Quinlan will be treated as obstruction of justice and prosecuted accordingly. She slammed her staff on the floor. This inquiry is concluded. The room erupted again. Vorak was shouting, Thrain was trying to calm him, and Venna was pushing through the crowd toward Zara. Kade instinctively stepped closer to Zara, ready to shield her, but Venna ignored him entirely. You foolish girl, Venna said, and then she pulled Zara into a crushing embrace. You brave, foolish, brilliant girl. Zara went rigid with shock, then melted into her mother's arms. Mother, I am sorry. I do not apologize. You did what I should have done. You protected our clan. Venna pulled back and gripped Zara's shoulders. But if you ever run away again without telling me why, I will tan your hide. Do you understand? Yes, Mother. Venna turned to Kade, her expression assessing. You are the human who harbored my daughter. I am. Kade met her eyes squarely. I would do it again. Venna studied him for a long moment. Then, to his shock, she smiled. Good. She needs someone stubborn enough to match her. She glanced between them, and her smile widened. And if I am reading the situation correctly, you have given her more than shelter. Zara flushed green. Mother, this is not the time. There is always time to notice when my daughter looks at someone the way she is looking at you. Venna patted Kade's arm. We will talk later, contract witness. For now, thank you for keeping her safe. She swept away before Kade could respond, already barking orders at her advisors. Across the room, Vorak was still arguing with Thrain, his voice rising. Guards were moving toward them. Kade took Zara's arm and guided her toward the door. We should go, he said quietly. They slipped out into the morning air. Zara was shaking, her breath coming in short gasps. Kade led her around the side of the building, out of sight of the crowd, and she sagged against the stone wall. We did it, she said, her voice shaky with disbelief. Kade, we actually did it. You did it. You stood up there and told the truth, and they believed you. Because you were beside me. She looked up at him, her eyes bright. I could not have done that alone. You could have, but I am glad you did not have to. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. You were incredible, she laughed, the sound edged with hysteria and relief. I feel like I am going to be sick. That is normal. You just accused a clan elder of fraud in front of everyone. You are allowed to feel sick. He pulled her into his arms and held her while she shook. It is over, Zara. The worst part is over. Is it? She pulled back enough to look at him. You heard Helena, you could lose your license. Maybe, or maybe the fact that I exposed fraud will count in my favor, he smiled. Either way, it was worth it. How can you say that? Because I would rather lose my license with my honor intact than keep it by staying silent. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And because I got to know you. That alone was worth every risk. Zara's eyes filled with tears. You are going to make me cry, and I have cried enough lately. Then do not cry. He kissed her forehead gently. Smile instead. We won. She smiled, tremulous but real. We won. They stayed there for a long moment, holding each other in the shadow of the magistrate's building while the world continued to turn around them. The clan moot was held 12 days later at the ford that had been at the center of Vorak's conspiracy. It was neutral ground, claimed by neither Blacktooth nor Ironstream, with the river running cold and clear between banks lined with autumn trees. Both clans assembled on opposite sides of the water, with a delegation of human settlers and territorial officials gathered in the middle. Kade stood with Zara in that middle ground, waiting. His stomach churned with nerves, but Zara was calm beside him, her chin high and her shoulders back. She wore her clan's formal colors now, green and black, and she looked every inch a leader. Magistrate Helena opened the moot with a recitation of charges. Vorak stood across from them, flanked by clan guards, his face a mask of fury. Over the past 12 days, the investigation had uncovered more. Letters between Vorak and human land speculators discussing the sale of Orc territory. Financial records showing bribes paid to forge documents. Testimony from younger Ironstream clan members who had suspected Vorak's scheming but been too afraid to speak. The evidence was damning. Patriarch Thrain spoke first, his voice heavy with shame. The Ironstream clan does not condone fraud or conspiracy. Elder Vorak has betrayed our trust and our honor. We withdraw all claims against Blacktooth clan and surrender the forged documents as evidence of his crime. Matriarch Venner rose next. Blacktooth clan accepts Ironstream's statement. We hold no ill will toward Patriarch Thrain or his son. The fault lies with Vorak alone. Helena turned to Vorak. You have been found guilty of fraud, conspiracy to incite violence, and attempted theft of clan property. The penalty for these crimes is exile and forfeiture of all clan standing. Do you have anything to say? Vorak spat at her feet. You are all fools. The humans will drive you from this land within a generation. I was trying to save what we could. By destroying your own people, Zara said, her voice ringing across the water. That is not salvation. That is cowardice. Vorak lunged at her, but the guards caught him before he took 2 steps. He struggled against them, cursing as they dragged him away. Helena waited until he was out of sight, then turned to the assembled clans. The betrothal contract between Blacktooth and Ironstream is void, as the terms were based on fraudulent pretenses. All obligations are dissolved. Zara Blackwater is free of any marriage agreement. Zara let out a breath, her shoulders sagging with relief, but Helena was not finished. However, there is the matter of contract witness Quinlan's actions. He harbored a runaway bride in direct violation of the contract he had signed. While his intentions were noble, the law is clear. A witness who aids in contract violation compromises their neutrality. Kade's heart sank. This was it, the moment he lost everything. Then Venna stepped forward. With respect, Magistrate, contract witness Quinlan did not aid in violation. He uncovered fraud. The contract was invalid from the moment Vorak plotted to use it for criminal purposes. A witness cannot be held responsible for a contract that was never legitimate, Thrain nodded. Ironstream clan agrees. Quinlan acted to preserve the truth, not violate it. He should be commended, not punished. Helena raised an eyebrow. Both clans agree on this. We do, Venna and Thrain said in unison. Interesting. Helena tapped her staff against the ground thoughtfully. Very well. In light of the circumstances and the support of both affected parties, this moot finds that contract witness Quinlan acted within the bounds of his professional responsibility. His license is confirmed and his reputation intact. She smiled slightly. Though I suggest you be more careful about which contracts you sign in the future, witness Quinlan. Kade felt dizzy with relief. Yes, Magistrate. Thank you, Magistrate. Do not thank me. Thank the clans who spoke for you. Helena raised her voice. This moot is concluded. Let the record show that justice was served and peace maintained. The assembly broke up slowly, clans mingling in a way that would have been impossible before. Humans and orcs talked together, sharing food and drink, celebrating the resolution. Kade stood in the middle of it all, watching Zara embrace her mother, watching Gareth approach her and apologize quietly for his uncle's actions, watching the world shift and settle into something new. Zara made her way back to him through the crowd. You kept your license. Thanks to you. He caught her hands. And your mother and Thrain, I owe everyone. You owe nothing. You gave us the truth. She glanced around at the mingling clans. Look at them. A month ago, this gathering would have ended in bloodshed. Now they are talking like old friends. That is what happens when people see the truth. He squeezed her hands gently. What happens now, Zara? With your clan? With you? She was quiet for a moment, her gaze distant. My mother wants me to stay with Blacktooth. She is grooming me to take over as matriarch someday. It is a good future, an honorable one. Kade's heart sank. That sounds wonderful. It does. She looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. But it is not the future I want, not all of it anyway. What do you want? I want to build peace like you do. I want to sit at negotiating tables and help clans and humans find common ground. I want to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else." She stepped closer. "And I want to do it with you if you will have me." Kade felt like the ground had dropped out from under him. "Zara, I talked to my mother. She agrees that Blacktooth needs someone who understands human law and customs, someone who can navigate both worlds. She said if I wanted to apprentice with you as a contract witness, she would support it." Zara took a shaky breath. "So I am asking, will you teach me? Will you let me work with you?" "Yes." The word came out before he could think. "Yes, absolutely, without question." She grinned, and it transformed her face. "Good, because I already told my mother you would say yes, and if you had said no, I would have looked very foolish." He laughed, the sound startled and joyful. "You are assuming a lot." "I am assuming based on evidence. You told me you had feelings for me. I am simply acting on that data." "Is that what we are calling it? Data? Would you prefer I call it something else?" She tilted her head, her expression teasing. "Love, perhaps," Cade's breath caught. "Is it love? I think it might be." She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle. "I think I might love you, Kade Quinlan, foolish and stubborn and impossibly kind as you are. But I would like time to be sure. Time to work with you and learn from you and see if this feeling grows or fades." "It will grow," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I already know it will, because I love you, Zara Blackwater. I think I have loved you since you crawled out from under my house covered in mud and asked me for one night." She smiled, her eyes bright. "That was a very undignified first meeting. It was perfect." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "And yes, you can apprentice with me. You can work with me and live with me and build this future with me. I would like nothing more." "Good." She kissed him then, soft and sweet, and the crowd around them erupted in cheers. When they broke apart, Venna was watching them with an expression of deep satisfaction. "About time," she called across the water. "I was beginning to think you would dance around each other forever." Zara flushed green, but she was laughing. Kade just grinned and pulled her close, and together they walked through the celebrating crowd, toward the future they would build together. The seasons turned. Autumn gave way to winter, and winter to spring. Zara moved into Cade's house officially, setting up a workspace in the spare room where she studied contract law and treaty negotiation. She proved to be a brilliant student, quick and incisive, with an instinct for finding compromise that rivaled his own. They began taking cases together, Kade as the primary witness and Zara as his apprentice. And slowly, the frontier learned to trust the sight of them working side by side. Vorak's exile became a cautionary tale. Other would-be schemers saw what happened to those who tried to use marriage and law for personal gain, and the number of fraudulent contracts dropped sharply. The magistrate began referring complex inter-clan disputes to Kade and Zara specifically, knowing they could navigate the delicate balance between human and orc interests. The work was hard, but it was good. And every evening they came home to the house by the creek, to warm fires and good meals, and the kind of quiet contentment Kade had never imagined he would find. One evening in late spring, as they sat together watching the sun set over the water, Zara turned to him with a serious expression. "I have been thinking." "That is usually dangerous," Kade teased. She swatted his arm. "I am being serious. I have been thinking about the future, about us." "What about us? You saved me, Kade. You gave me shelter when I was desperate, and you stood beside me when I needed courage, and you taught me how to build peace instead of running from conflict." She took his hand. "You have given me so much. I want to give you something back. You do not owe me anything. I know. But I want this anyway." She took a deep breath. "Marry me." Kade stared at her. "What? Marry me?" she repeated, her voice steady now. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wake up beside you and work beside you and build this future we have been planning. So marry me, Kade Quinlan, please." He felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You are supposed to let me ask." "Why?" "Because you are the man and I am the woman. That is a very traditional view for someone who makes his living breaking tradition." She grinned at him. "Besides, I am an orc. We do not wait for men to ask permission. We take what we want, and I want you." "You have me," he said, his voice rough. "You have had me since the moment you crawled out of that culvert. Yes, Zara, I will marry you. I will marry you and love you and spend every day of my life grateful that you chose me." She kissed him then, fierce and joyful, and he kissed her back with everything he had. They were married 3 months later at the ford, the same place where Vorak's conspiracy had been exposed and justice served. Both clans attended, along with half the human settlements in the territory. Magistrate Helena officiated, and a different contract witness signed the agreement, a young woman named Clara who had trained under Kade and who grinned the entire time. Venna cried, which she claimed was due to the wind and not emotion. Kade's old friends from the territorial office gave speeches that were both embarrassing and heartfelt. And when Kade and Zara spoke their vows, the sun broke through the clouds and turned the river to gold. "I vow to stand beside you," Kade said, his hands holding Zara's. "In conflict and peace, in hardship and joy. I vow to be your partner, your advocate, and your home. I love you, Zara, and I will love you until the river runs dry." "I vow to build our future together," Zara said, her voice clear and strong. "To work beside you, to challenge you, to hold you when you need holding and push you when you need pushing. I love you, Kade, and I will love you until the stars go dark." They sealed the vows with a kiss, and the crowd erupted in celebration. The years that followed were full and rich. Kade and Zara built a reputation across the frontier as the best contract witnesses in the territory, the ones who could solve disputes no one else could touch. They traveled together, worked together, and returned always to the house by the creek. 2 years after their wedding, Zara bore their first child, a daughter with green skin and her mother's eyes but her father's smile. They named her Raina, and she grew up wild and fearless, running through the woods and learning to read contracts before she learned to write her own name. 3 years later came a second daughter, Willa, quieter than her sister but with a sharp mind and a gift for seeing through lies. Then a third, Clara, named for the witness who had signed their marriage contract. The house by the creek grew crowded and loud, full of children's laughter and the constant bustle of family life. Kade added rooms and Zara planted gardens, and together they built something that looked nothing like what either of them had imagined but was perfect nonetheless. One evening, when Raina was 12 and already talking about becoming a contract witness like her parents, Kade stood on the porch watching his daughters play by the creek. Zara came to stand beside him, her hand finding his. "You ever think about that night?" she asked. "The night I hid beneath the house, all the time." He squeezed her hand. "I think about how terrified you were, how desperate, and I think about how close I came to sending you away. But you did not. No, I let you in and you changed everything." He turned to look at her, this woman who had stumbled into his life in torn silk and mud, who had taught him that courage came in many forms, who had built a life with him that was better than anything he had dared to dream. "Thank you for crawling out of that culvert, Zara. Thank you for asking me for shelter." She smiled, the expression soft and full of love. "Thank you for saying yes." They stood together, watching the sun set over the water and their daughters chase fireflies in the twilight, and Kade thought about the sound of weeping that had woken him so many years ago, about the choice he had made to offer kindness to a stranger, and about all the years of joy that had flowed from that single decision. The river ran on, carrying their story with it, a tale of courage and love and the kind of peace that had to be built one careful choice at a time. And in the house by the creek, the lights glowed warm against the gathering dark, a beacon for anyone who might be lost and looking for shelter.